injured people is terrible. But what you cannot do, you cannot quantify memories. You can count deaths, you can count, you can somehow measure destruction, but memories are somehow abstract term, and they can they can get embodiment just when they are told. So this is important in terms of remembrance, that those old experiences are passed in the way of narration. So after the one thing like war finished, the most important thing the one can do is to actually to talk about it, to remember it, not to forget it. After this war in particular, not too much physical evidences are available. Just a couple of phone and camera records. Most of the memories and clues on that what happened are in the form of narration. Here, what we have, these memories actually serve as a very important lesson to the oncoming generations. So that to teach them what actually how much the importance is of their country, how much importance is of their people who were killed actually to serve, to defend this country, and actually it serves also in order to allow something similar to happen ever again. Today we will talk about one extraordinary proof of what happened. It is a book, Red Jacket with the Hood, written with one boy who at the time war started had 6 years. It is was written about entire war, but the focuses on Srebrenica genocide, which happened in July 1995. This boy who wrote a book is actually has witnessed his father being taken away from him and his mother and other members of family with his red jacket with the hood in his hand. So that was the last time he saw his father. This book actually is a way that help boy to make distinction between living and dying. Actually help him to continue living, so he had a choice to write or to die. What he decided is to write, and here we have an excellent proof of war happenings. So this book is actually an based on autobiographical memories of the boy. Himself, he was trying to explain how the memories in a child actually are created, how he was able actually to recall them after such many years, and to write a book, and how these memories are affected over the time. So autobiographical memories are social constructions, meaning that their origin is in experience, but they are elaborated and maintained through the interaction with others. So this boy was from the beginning surrounded by his family members. They lived all the events together, so he was able to talk to them about that, and in that way his memory was even more developed, and he was able to recall them after. What is actually influenced in creating of autobiographical memories are actually many factors. So the person's age at the time when events happen, the characteristics of event itself, and many other plays or some surroundings that was present at that time, and also the reminiscing of the person is important as well. So how much time did he talk about that? How many times did he tell that story? How many in front of which people he did it, and others? So this particular story is difficult in terms that its path leads us to the war distractions. Actually, it's very difficult because the war happened, and he didn't choose character, so to say, and place and time. So the boy actually was stuck in that whole situation, and he had to cope with that in the best way he could. So he sometimes maybe he didn't understand. Actually, most of the time he couldn't understand why something is happening in that way, and he was trying to explain to himself why something happened and why they had to leave their home and similar things. So most of the experiences this boy lived were actually traumatic ones. They were painful experiences, both emotional and physical. So these can be either engraved in one's mind, or they can be suppressed by it. So if they're engraved, he will remember them any time. But if they're suppressed by the mind, they can be recalled only like much years later, but still they are present and they are serving as a proof of what happened. So it doesn't mean if he was an adult or the little boy. So he was a witness and his story is present here. So he was, as I said, he was witnessing many things. He was watching people being hurt and killed. He was witness of lack of food and other basic life needs. But on the other side, there were many humor and nice events. For example, they were trying together. Their family was trying to get together. They were dancing, playing some instruments, making weddings, and all of that in terms so they can somehow continue to live as much as it's possible a normal life in this extraordinary situation. So these contrasting events made him actually made such framework so he could maybe remember them better. So, for example, if you think of normal routine, what you do every day, it comes so simple. It looks so simple, but for such a situation, it represents actually like way of life to a little boy who only wants for this war to get ended. So all these nice and bad situations actually are episodes in the whole this story. When it comes to the child, to the boy himself, actually we can say that his childhood was stolen. Why I'm telling this? Because if you think what a normal, 6-year-old boy does, actually he wants to play around with other children, he wants to explore his world, he wants to go normally to school and all other things that kids do. But instead of that, he was waking up with the sound of grenades. He was watching people being killed and hurt. He was missing basic needs like food, clothes, and everything else. They had to make up things to replace the one they were missing. And so they had to leave their home. And finally, he lost his father, which actually was like the last thing that should happen. If he lived the normal life he's supposed to, then all of these everyday events maybe wouldn't be engraved in his mind. But all these memories are impressed in his mind, and they are easier to be remembered after. Most important thing in retrieving the memory is how much the person sees what happened important to himself. As I told, he was surrounded by his family, his closest persons, and all of that was related to them. So if he saw them, if they are important to him, which they are, all what happened will have even bigger effects to him, and he will remember them even more intense. And also, at that time, when the events happened, as he was trying to explain to himself why something is happening, it also stayed in his mind for a long time. For example, in his book he states he was wondering himself why he had to leave his home, why he had to be separated from his father, why they didn't have food or clothes, why he couldn't live a normal life, why he couldn't go out to the street whenever he wants. Something similar things. So all these and his thinkings about this event make them even easier remembered. So after these memories were formed, later on, they can be easily recalled by simply triggering them by anything that has any relation with the event itself. So, for example, if he sees, hears, smells, or feels something that has to do with that event, he will be able to recall these events and to talk about them. It's true that over the time memories can be forgotten. Actually, they can be distorted, but that is most visible in a time when it happened. As the author himself states in his book, he says, "I cannot remember when it happened. I don't know which year, which month, which part of the day, but I can remember what happened, all the details, and even he was able to talk about his feelings that was present at that time." Another factor in recalling the memories is social interaction. So his conversation with adults actually serves as a framework to form a specific memory of child, which then can preserve memories even better. So as the boy was talking to his uncles, cousins, and other adults, he was able to remember the events even better, and every time he was remembering some new details. And at the end, as the time passes, he's maybe even more capable to talk about something that happened maybe 20 years ago. And another and last point is how much I want to emphasize how much mother-child relationship is important in such situations. So after the event, children talks to his mother. He's able to freely talks about his emotions and experiences with his mother, which also support his memory development. And in this whole situation, because since he lost his father, his mother was the closest person to whom he could share his memories. And this point I will stop. I will introduce you my colleague who will actually author of this book, who will tell you from his point of view how the memories were created and how he managed to recall them after this much years. So my friend Jasmin Jusufović.
Before I had started, I wanted to guide you to your mind through a memory I have of my old home. But in order not to receive this little paper, I'm gonna stick with the schedule. Yes, I'm the author of the book, Red Hooded Jacket. The thing that made me write the book, I'm sorry, my colleague Azra has just reminded me of my painful memories, so sometimes I'll just I'm fighting with them again. When first thing, as the war ended, and as a little boy realized that the bad events he was facing were not to be happening again. First question I had asked myself was, why did I remember? Why did I memorize all of it? There is a very thin line between me thinking of my memories as a curse and as a blessing. I was 6 years old when the war started, and I can draw you a blueprint of my home where I was born, where the TV set was standing, where my toys were standing, and even where I lost my plastic shovel when I played, with which I played. But I didn't quite have a choice whether I should be numb to what's happening around me. In the event of such grave murders, in the event of lack of food, the mind just becomes an open book, a recorder that preserves and accepts everything that's happening around him. I was I was witnessing the lack of food, the lack of the poisoned water, the constant shelling, constant bombing, and I couldn't. The wiser choice I could have made was just to be aware of the events. A person cannot be aware of memory itself, because memories are what you are. Memories start once you start recollecting the events from your mind. The mind is aware only of the events that are happening, and it's happening at the moment it witnesses the events. So storing the events, once the mind is opened as a white plain book, is totally detached of one person's will. You cannot choose what to store into your mind. You may choose to shut your eyes, but you can still hear things around you. You can still feel them in your fingers. And as an IT experts would say, there is a set of data stored in a media. But once you use the data, then it becomes an information. So in a way of culture of remembrance, there are events in the history. They are stored in books. They are stored in minds of people. But once you start recollecting them, start speaking about them, the moment you recollect, that's when the events become a memory. I had, as I told you, between the notion of curse and the blessings of my memory, I had a sea of events which I could write into my novel. When I wrote the novel, I give just a portion of the events I have witnessed, and it's a portion, it's a significant portion, but there are even more events, much more events that I didn't write in a book. I chose to do selective recollection of my memory that I had of the war. Selective in a way that I didn't want to speak about everyday food habits, but rather I chose to speak about the lack of food from time to time. The importance of storing memory and recollecting memory was emphasized, knowing that once I was witnessing them, I was aware of the events that probably the next day I will lose everything. In the notion, in the events when it's a matter of months when you will change your place of habitat, you choose to fight for something that you had. And my own awareness of the events and my own open mind to record those events in my mind were the thing I was forced to save, and I was forced to keep strong. In writing my book, even in thinking over these memories that I have of the war, which is a constant battle, I always remember the war and stuff that I survived. I'm balancing between these light memories, as my colleague said, of the weddings, of the humorous events, and the events of which are dark in its nature, the events where I witnessed murders and displacements and hunger, etc. The reason I have done so is that comes from the importance of the memories to be the source of the life lessons and life values. I used my good memories as to be the lessons of life's optimism. So even if the worst things happen to you, if you survive to the next day, maybe the next day will bring you something good. The bad memories that are stored in my mind I'm using them as moral instructions, even at the time of the war, for example, when the shelling of Srebrenica started, I counted the shells, and I was thinking for myself, this is very bad. I'm very afraid of these grenades. Okay, then once this shelling passes, once I come to another situation, I will be the one to make sure I will not do the shelling. So I somehow built my own moral standards in a way that a person, a living creature, is sacred in a sense, that you knowing that how stressful, how powerful feelings I had survived, I was aware to think that probably if somebody else was feeling the same things in a different manner, he was facing the same things. So my moral standard became be the part of those that will fight for these events to never happen again. When I wrote the book, it was 1999, so it was like 4 years after the war. These 4 years were the vacuum in my... I was subconsciously suppressing the events I've witnessed in a way to just to accommodate to the normal life, to the life in peace. But then I dreamt of my father who came, it was a very vivid dream where he said, you should do something, you know a lot of stuff, you should do something. And this event of me dreaming my father telling me to write the book, he's literally the first page of the book was dictated by my father in the dream. He said, write it as you remember it, don't beautify it. This event in 1999 was the time where my testimony became memory, where I was forced, when all of that came back, and I started recalling all the events of that I have survived. But after I wrote the book, it was a little portion of physical embodiment of my memories. I was afraid that nobody would believe me. My book entered into this virtual intellectual world. So I kind of gained the need to find a physical attachment of my memories, a proof of my memories. My house was destroyed, so I didn't have any chance to use my house as Professor Hadžialić says, the place of the memory. All of my male relatives were destroyed, so I couldn't make, a group of witnesses. The struggle continued on for the last 20, etc. years. In these years, I have circled or came to a closure for certain hurts that I have. My remains of my father are found, though in 6 mass graves, but they are found. I have a gravestone of my father and all my relatives. There is a little bit settlement there. I still live far away from my birthplace. There is no settlement in that. So I'm kind of fighting to rebuild my house so that I have a settlement there. But the blueprint, I remember, I will not be able to reconstruct it again as it was. So even if I rebuild my house, it will not be the same house as it used to be. It will not be the proper place of my memory. So as my last conclusion, last week I visited my home place and started clearing the place where the house was, and there is no words to describe the event when I found the blue plastic shovel that I played with. And this is the only physical memory of me being the boy who was born in 86, who had lived in Zvornik. Besides of the stories I tell where there is a great risk people will not believe me. So, Red Hooded Jacket is a novel that came as a need to cope with all the stuff that I have survived, and serves to me as a constant revival of my memories, which I take as the source of very important my own life lessons and moral lessons in life. So with this, I will be concluding. Thank you for attention, and I'm sorry if I provoked certain feelings that you didn't expect to feel today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your first-hand experience and memories.